this week, one of the big stories that we're all looking at is the NC president appearing before the Zondo Commission. You're somebody who's been there. Have you given him any advice? What are your thoughts about what he needs to be mindful of when he goes to appear, to account really, for many of the questions people have had about how the NC functions?
Now, the president of the ANC has been in the executive of the ANC since 1991. He would rather advise me than me advising him. He was Secretary General, he was in the NEC, he was Deputy President, he is now President. So, he should have the right background to be able to deal with questions that he will confront in the Zondo Commission. I hope so.
What do you think he needs to be mindful of? You've been in that hot seat. We've sat watching you for hours on end. What do you think he needs to be mindful of in trying to articulate what the ANC is about and how the ANC's run government over the years?
The only thing about the Zondo Commission that I discovered practically is that never try to manufacture the truth. State facts as you understand them, so that when they are asked again after 5 hours, you give the same answer. If they are asked after 4 days, you give the same answers because you have given answers as you understand and know them. That is my secret. I've seen many people going to Zondo Commission saying all sorts of things, distort the truth, try to look good, and when questions are asked, they run into problems because lies have short legs.
There's some level of belligerence across quarters of the ANC, particularly. The ANC will hold an NEC meeting, it will come out and articulate a position regarding the Zondo Commission, and then you have leaked audio where you have a DSG of the ANC sounding like she doesn't trust the Zondo Commission. You have some leaders in the ANC who also, just like former President Jacob Zuma, have a particular view about this commission. This continued belligerence, what do you make of it?
The issue about trust is something that you can't buy, and it's something that you cannot build. It's something that you earn in the trenches by your practical experience. So if we're three, we'll have different experience about any institution. And when people articulate those as individuals, appreciate that is their experience of that institution. I will have my own experience. DSC will have her own experience. Somebody else will have her own his own experience. So trust is something that you earn. It's not something that you make up. So I don't judge people on the basis of the level of trust, because trust is an expression of experience.
Speaking of trust, the understanding we have as outsiders that there's a lack of trust within the movement, within leaders within the movement. An NEC meeting sits and you have leaked audios flying on social media. Our WhatsApps are flooded with leaked audio of classified meetings. You have a meeting with the former president. Again, there's leaked audio bits. What do you make of what is happening there? What is your understanding as a chair of the party of what's going on, and what does it communicate? What is it saying to you about your party and the leaders that you're serving alongside?
As a young man, I took an interest in the ANC. Some minister who was my leader in the student Christian movement tried to persuade me to link to the PAC. And I took interest actively in the ANC myself. And I always have a problem with people who glorify the past of the ANC and not being articulate and factual about it. And they refuse to tell us that a man called President Kumari of the ANC was removed purely because he had leanings to the left. And conservative in the ANC campaigned and removed him in 1930. And people don't want to talk about that. It's not something to talk about. And people refuse to talk about the disastrous presidency of Isaac Pixlikasen, a very top intellectual of the ANC. But when he became the president, that presidency became disastrous. Okay. People don't want to talk about Morocco, who almost collapsed in the seat. Okay. And never want to give credit to Dr. Kuma for reviving the ANC in the 1940s. So I don't want this thing of the ANC being glorified that the past was beautiful. People don't want to talk about how the Morogoro conference came about. Activists of the ANC submitted a memorandum criticizing and insulting the leadership. But Oliver Tambo, in his character, opted to be constructive in dealing with criticism. And that's why we're here. And that conference is a milestone in the history of the ANC that always angers our thinking. Out of that conference came the strategy and tactics. Out of that conference came the 4 pillars of the revolution. Everybody refers to that, but people refuse to appreciate that the ANC has moved through various difficult periods. It is here today.
Why do you think that's happening though? Why is it a convenience argument not to recognize what has shaped the ANC? Is it for convenience sake, or is it because it's history, people just pack away history and forget about it?
It's convenience because sometimes you take a resolution, like, for example, the step aside, much talked about. Step aside. If you listen to the discussion today, you can think that is the first time there is a step aside resolution in the ANC. But if you are honest yourself, you know that 2 chief whips of the ANC in parliament were asked to step aside. 2. You will remember that a deputy president of the ANC, when confronted with the charges of the arms deal, was asked to step aside. And that list goes on. The Minister of Communication, my friend Diana Pule, was asked to step aside. And that list is long. That list is long. But people, for convenience, make it a new resolution. And when it was taken in December 2017, they make us to believe that it was taken for Comrade Ace, the Secretary General. But it was 2017. Comrade Ace was not Secretary General. He was elected in that conference as Secretary General. So that resolution is not Comrade Ace Makashula's resolution. It's a resolution of conference. And we must deal with it honestly and not be convenient about it and try to create spaces. You know, I listened to Supra Pili yesterday talk about this resolution of the ANC in conflict with the Constitution of the Republic.
Yes.
And now, as he was speaking, it dawned to me that here is a leader of the ANC who doesn't understand that the ANC is a voluntary organization in which you join voluntarily out of your own will. It has its own rules. They are not in conflict with the Constitution. They are applicable to a voluntary organization. Now, when leaders of the ANC, for convenience, distort facts, I get worried because it is that distortion of facts that is actually going to hurt the ANC.
You know, there's a thing that you speak of now about step aside, and the leaders who don't seem to understand it. Maybe it is for convenience, maybe it isn't. Has the ANC thought through step aside politically and legally what the implications of this particular resolution mean for the party, especially with such a massive pushback among some quarters of the party?
Step aside is a simple resolution. I understand it fully. It's a resolution about the reputation of the African National Congress. If your action impacts negatively on the reputation of the ANC, you are asked to step aside. And actually, if you read that resolution carefully, it will tell you that step aside is a voluntary act and it reflects your consciousness. You take a conscious decision to step aside to limit the impact of your action on the reputation of the ANC. Only when you refuse to do so should the party take action on you, suspend you, subject you to disciplinary committee. My own view is that step aside is not an expulsion, it's not a suspension. You are giving yourself space to breathe. Actually, rules may allow you to participate in structures of the ANC, but say you will not do X, Y, and Z. That is step aside.
Why is it being seen as the end all? You say it's not an expulsion, it's not a suspension. People are seeing it as the end all. Let's be honest.
No.
People who support the Secretary General see it, one, as it being about the Secretary General specifically right now. Secondly, as an end to his political career in the ANC if it does go ahead. Why do you think they've got that perception?
Can I tell you, people who stepped aside earlier One of them is Tony Yengen. He's a member of the NEC today. Why was his career not ended? Another one was President Jacob Zuma. He came out of the step aside and became the president of the ANC. So it is convenient to make assumptions that are not backed by facts. It can't be true, it can't be correct. It's dangerous.
Are the political implications of this particular resolution? I mean, there's a 30-day countdown. People are looking at a week now to go about people who are implicated in
Yes.
the step aside resolution. Should there be concern about the implications of this resolution being enacted, being implemented?
No.
For those who refuse to step aside, having to now maybe face DCs and maybe be removed, are there concerns about the political implications at all?
What are the political implications? The political implication is that you refuse to deal with your organization honestly. You are refusing to give your organization credit and protect its reputation. And then we should be concerned about the political implication. I don't understand that logic. When you are asked to step aside, you do. You know, one time at the beginning of the parliamentary question, the Integrity Commission wrote a list of 26 people. I was in that list. Said they must all step aside. We objected to that. Said no, the Integrity Commission must talk to us and make a determination. And ultimately went and appeared before it. We didn't step aside. We're here. All I'm saying is that in the organization, factional consideration must not be at the heart of decisions. Decision must be honest, decision must be candid, and the members must feel having been given an opportunity to explain their case. That's all. Now, in this case, the Secretary General is from the Integrity Commission, and there's an outcome of that.
Recommendation, yeah.
Yes. So if you think that you don't agree with the Integrity Commission, you don't agree with the NEC, you don't agree with anything, people who should talk to your branches, I will know as Gwede Mantashe that you are being dishonest, because this resolution is taken by delegates from the branches in a conference. Now you say you want another conference to implement the decision of the conference. It is the duty of the NEC to implement decisions of conference.
Last week, I think it was last week, the Deputy Secretary General called out the Secretary General saying you need to call your supporters to order. You need to get your supporters to stop this Samson option where they're trying to pull the entire organization down. What is your view of what's happening with the Secretary General in, again, what people think is a fight to stay in his office? Are you concerned that people around him, I mean, we've heard about the RET forces being seen as an organization within an organization. What is your take on what's happening there? And how does the ANC then resolve that issue?
Now, let me not get into the office of the Secretary General.
Sure.
That's sure. I was sitting there for 10 years, actually. It's not a short period.
We know.
Very difficult period. I sat in that office. You see, managing an office, doesn't matter what office, including your office city, has a factor called the personality involved. That's a major factor. Okay. Now, personality will help you understand to manage dynamics going with the office. Okay. So I don't want to get into that. Okay. What I can talk about is that RET forces is a mischief, basically. It's just mischief. Because you go to Congress, you argue for a conference to take a resolution on radical economic transformation. I hear this fight about whether it is radical economic transformation or radical socio-economic transformation. To me, that's not the issue. The issue is that radical transformation is urgent. All of us in the NC agree with that. Okay. But once you add something new called force, you are creating an entity. With the resolution of the NC, radical economic transformation, radical socio-economic transformation, we all agree. But once you add force, and create an entity that calls meetings, that have structures in the regions, everybody who is in his right mind will be suspicious of that, because we took a youth league took a resolution on economic um,
Transformation.
freedom
Oh, yeah, in our lifetime, yeah.
in our lifetime. That is today an organization. Okay, today that resolution is an organization. Now, when you begin to create a resolution and you add a force and create an entity, we are right in suspecting that you are building a following that will translate into an organization. The resolution of conference push pressure on everybody given the task to execute the resolution of the ANC. Don't make it an entity within the ANC, because it is not.
Now, the person who this entity is said to be running in is the SG's office. So, at what point then do you also, as a chair, say, SG, there's an issue in your office? And has he then taken the correct action to call it out? The ANC raises an eyebrow. People say he needs to curb that. The question is, has enough been done even by the SG to curb it? Are you satisfied with efforts on his part to deal with that thing that's rearing its head within the ANC's headquarters?
Can I tell you it? I'm giving you this advice for free. I won't charge you for this. You know, in politics or in organizations, normal organizations, the worst thing you do is to take a dig into your successor or your predecessor. When you do that, you must know that you have run out of ideas. Okay? You don't do that. It's your successor and your predecessor. If you have an issue, you go to them and talk to them. Say, but hey, Mhlakas, this thing is dangerous. You see. Now, anybody who assumes that I don't talk to Comrade Ace is mistaken. I do talk to him. Actually, more regular than people appreciate. But what I'm not going to do is to dig into him in public. I won't do that. Attack his person, attack his personality, attack his way of doing things. But when I'm not happy, I take a journey, go to him and say, Comrade Ace, this thing, the way you are going about it is not on. For example, let me give you an example. Comrade Ace asked for 30 days. He says, I will consult
Matthews
Posa,
former President Jacob Zuma,
President
Deputy President Ramaphosa,
and President
Thabo
Mbeki. Originally, there was Josiah Tele in the list. I suspect he met.
There were pictures to that effect.
I suspect he met
Matthews.
What they discussed is not my business. He met Zuma, accompanied by Tony Yengeni. Now, accompanied by Tony Yengeni. Once you do that as a leader, you go and meet other leaders, you get account by particular people, you are creating complications in the organization. He has not met President Mbeki, Deputy President Mkande, and nor has he met Josiah Tele. Okay. Now, to me, when you do that, you are creating gaps as if you want to meet people who agree with you, people who you suspect will give you a different advice, you avoid meeting them. When you do that, you are creating a crisis for the organization, and the organization must confront that crisis.
So that's where you're headed, to dealing with this one issue. For now, that's what it looks like from afar.
I don't know.
You still have 5 days. In the 30 days, you might meet them. You don't know yet.
I don't know.
Yeah. What do you think he needs to do? A lot of us, we are not party members, absolutely. We're looking at this 30 days, asking whether or not the Secretary General will step aside. What do you think Ace Magashule should do? I'm not asking you to take a dig at him publicly.
I don't know what he wants to do, but he has 30 days to take a decision. And that 30 days is not finished yet.
You say you don't know what he will do. I'm asking you, what do you think he should do?
No, I should not think what he should do, because individuals follow their conscience and do what is in the best interest of the organization as individuals. So, what is good for the organization for me may not be good for him. So I can't tell him what to do.
Okay. I want to move into the issue of renewal, but before I get there, we don't fully understand the process. I think you touched on it a little bit. I think Paul Mashatile might have done so with an interview with News 24. People think, oh, 30 days, yes, we'll reach some sort of a conclusion. But that's not actually how the ANC works. It's 30 days for a conscience, right, to take place, for them to put the organization before themselves. These people were implicated. And if they don't, what happens? The constitution of the ANC kicks in. How does the process work from there?
The constitution kicks in.
And what does that look like? What does that mean?
Go and read Rule 25.7, 25.70.
25.7. Then the constitution of the ANC kicks in.
70.
7.
Yes.
Got it. And then
You read that constitution, it will tell you step by step what the organization should do.
Okay.
Yeah.
You trust that the organization has the capacity to do what it needs to do.
It has. It has. The organization has the capacity. 86 plus 14 league representative in the organization. So the capacity is there.
Okay. I want to speak about the renewal project of the ANC. Lots of divided views about whether or not it's coming along well. Sometimes in the tension there is progress. What is your view about the renewal project that was undertaken in 2017? As we speak now in 2021, when you observe the party, how has it been faring in that regard?
The renewal is a social concept. Okay, it's not a natural science concept. So it's not exact. It depends on actions you are taking. The ANC has done many things that contribute to its renewal. And look, it should go to a rally in January. It says no, there's COVID. And therefore, let's do it virtually. Successful virtual January 8th rally. That talks to a renewed organization. Okay. The ANC now is grappling with running virtual branch meetings. It's a renewed organization. It will depend in the long term on the caliber of a member that the ANC is having. It's not the process that determines the real outcome. The caliber of a member contributes highly to the outcome of a renewal program.
How's it faring? You touched now, when you speak about the adapting to the virtual world,
Yes.
that's not necessarily renewal in that sense, because that's adapting to modernization.
No.
That's the NC finally coming to the 21st century. It's modernization. Can be
Mod-
part of renewal. It can be
Modernization is renewal.
to an extent, but
Yes.
renewal is also remembering what values and principles the organization is about. The organization
Yeah.
had identified that those have become fractured over the years.
Yes.
So part of the renewal project is trying to build back in.
Yes.
You touched on that about the cadre, the quality of the cadre.
Shall I tell you what's it? One of the problems that we're having with the media, in its analysis of an organization, it is think of a static organization. Because it is static. And therefore, when you do your analysis, you periodize your analysis, which is a very dangerous thing to do. One, you should go back and say, there was an organization that operated under conditions of illegality for 30 years. Okay. It became small, tight, discipline and security intertwined, and then it becomes an open organization where everybody can join the organization. And people tell me, this is no longer the same. I tell them, if it would be the same, after opening up to everybody, it would be a sick organization. The fact that it's not the same reflects the change of the character of the organization. It's a mass movement now, not mass movement in the form of a tight-knit and people being the forest of its operations. Today, it has members, And you find people sometimes who come to the ANC for just material benefit for themselves. You find people who come to the ANC with the intention to hurt it. Do you get my point? And you find people who organize themselves into a propaganda machinery that I read every time in the social media, whose purpose is to hurt the ANC, but they call themselves members of the ANC. And when I read it, I can see these are not members of the ANC. It's a rendered crowd to hurt the ANC. The ANC, if it survives that, you must know that it's renewed and it's resilient. Okay. So renewal of the ANC is not just citing the principle and all those. Its ability to withstand attack on it and be able to continue doing what it should do. Contest election every year. Many of the journalists write an obituary of the ANC in every election that will die now. It's now on the deathbed.
But there is a trajectory downwards as well. We can't deny that.
There's a trajectory downwards following a trajectory upwards. Now, as a mine worker, I understand the question of cyclical behavior of commodity prices. You know, when the commodity prices go down, it doesn't mean that that is death of that commodity, because that commodity will pick up into the future. Even an organization, you do certain interventions and you change the direction. In the last elections, people don't want to acknowledge that. When we're going down, we picked up 3% up. Okay. Then when we tell them, they say, no, it was national versus local. But the reality of the matter, you pick up 3%, it means that there was it's an organo curve. It's something called organo curve with the econo curve, which kicks in and tries to pull it up. What we should do on the 27th of October, there will be local government election. Let's see if that curve will continue to grow up. It may grow by 1%, 2%, or grow significantly. It's something that you analyze and monitor.
Okay. You spoke about Supra Mahumapelu's comments yesterday, right, about the constitution of the ANC versus step aside. When you watch some of the provinces in the ANC and the happenings in those provinces, what's your assessment? I'm thinking obviously about the Northwest. The Northwest, one even argues that it's not just a province that's failing, it's manufactured, it's engineered to look that way, and that engineering comes from within the ANC.
You see, that allegation against President Ramaphosa is something that you cannot avoid. It's what I called occupational hazard. Okay. Even if his cabinet is balanced of people who are from different factions, they are sitting in that cabinet, many of them doing well. Okay, who are not in his faction, if you call those factions, doing well in the cabinet, doing their work, and nobody bothers them. Okay, nobody bothers them. They are given responsibility, they do well, and so forth. Then that's how you test whether there's patching. But there are people who will continue to put a foot into the work of the government and hide behind patch and think that this president will not do anything because if he touches me, then he will be patching me. Okay? Which is mischief, CD. Once we go to a conference and the new leadership is elected, the organization must unite behind that leadership. If I continue to identify myself as CR17, I am being mischievous. I have no intention to unify the organization. I want to divide it. That will apply to other people who go there and say, we are being patched. They're not being patched. They must do the right thing. Nobody will patch them. Okay. If you do the right thing, nobody will patch.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
The Free State PEC gets told, don't appeal the Supreme Court of Appeals judgment, seek a political solution.
Let me tell you, I delivered the message to the Free State. I've read in the newspapers all sorts of messages that were sent to the Free State. But I was the official who was given the task to go and talk to the Free State. This is the message. Guys, invest your time on unifying the province. Invest your time on building a viable, sustainable organization in the Free State. People are not happy. Try to bring them in and build the organization. The appeal is not urgent, but close to the date of the closure of the appeal, you may submit the appeal so that that window is not closed. Okay. And I think all that has happened in the Free State is exactly that. The team in the Free State is putting a lot of energy on unifying the Free State. They have called people who are outside to come in and talk to them. We'll get their report. But some people go and appeal close to the 22nd of April, which was the closing date to indicate that you intend to appeal. And because people are fighting and are divided, they see contradictions there. No contradictions. You keep that window open, but you could spend your time in unifying the province and making it resilient.
Then the provincial secretary then writes a letter the following day saying, actually ignore that instruction. That's the wrong instruction. There is no mandate for you to go and seek an appeal with the Concord.
I don't want to pretend as if I'm in the Free State. There are NEC members deployed there who must deal with that dynamic. But what creates contradictions is when I abuse my position in the organization and run things down the throat of everybody, and they revolt, and then you defocus the organization. The organization has a responsibility to unify the Free State, build a visible and a strong ANC, keep the window of an appeal open in case this doesn't work out. Okay, that's a logical way of dealing with an organization.
Now the appeal is off the table, and there's not an alternative but to try and unify.
My understanding is that Comrade Machinin and Comrade A submitted the appeal
via Morocco attorneys, which was then instructed to withdraw.
Okay, that I don't know. I haven't received that report. You are ahead of me. You are between where I am and where the SG is. You're somewhere in between.
Is this your last hurrah serving in the ANC, in leadership? What are your thoughts? And I ask you this because, after your second term as Secretary General, you said to us, like, you can't do it again. That job will kill you. You had enough at that time.
It was going to kill me.
Where you stand now?
I'm chairperson now. Okay.
Is this your last hurrah?
I will take fresh decisions. I have not taken that decision. Actually, it's presumptuous of anybody to say it's my second last or my last when nobody has nominated him.
Fair.
Okay.
Fair. Okay. If you get nominated, you'll be down. You're still available.
I don't know.
It will not kill you.
That process has not started. But I can tell you that it's not as strenuous as the previous one.
Should Cyril Ramaphosa return as NC president, do you think his task is done? Do you still think there's more for him to do? Is he still the right kind of person to continue leading the ANC?
It's always good for a president of the ANC to take the 2 terms. It's always good. But it is not compulsory. But it's always good for a president of the ANC to do what is done, because when you're a president of the ANC, you do work and many areas shape up and you begin to see the results, and then you are off. For example, let me give you an example. The economy is predicted to grow by 3%, 3.1, okay. If we achieve 3.1 economic growth, it's a record after a long time. We last saw 5% growth under President Mbeki, under a policy we hated so much after Ikea. Okay. If under President Ramaphosa the economy achieved 3% growth and we sustained it and push it further, we'll have done well. And that work will be foolhardy of us to want to drop the drive of the program out of that. Leave many people who talk many things. The reality of the matter is that we are coming out of the longest recession as an economy. We're out of it, we're growing.
Full stop. And then this is my last question. The leaked audio that was doing the rounds kind of gave people insight into what particular leaders think about the former President Jacob Zuma's issue with the Constitutional Court. Um, we've heard bits with NC President Cyril Ramaphosa, NC Deputy Secretary General Jesse Duarte. What I wanted to ask is, what do you make of his threats? I mean, the threats of anarchy, the ashes of democracy. Is that a thing that we should be worried about? What do you make of those particular threats?
Can I tell you what my view of those audio visuals?
You can give me the views on the audio and then the views on the threats, because
No,
those threats are in the public domain by statements.
They're individuals. They're individuals. Is that a propagandist? I always tell people the difference between communication and propaganda is that propaganda, you take snippets that will cause the damage to what you want to harm, and you release them. Communication, you release a conversation. If you look to that, they issued what President Zuma said as he came to the meeting. Most of the responses that came from the officials are not out there. And that is not an accident of history. It's deliberate. It is meant to hurt the ANC more. And we have a responsibility to protect the ANC from such hate.
The threats of anarchy?
That is included.
Those are not from leaked audio. Those are statements that the former president made publicly, released them publicly.
The ANC has said publicly as well. We must cooperate with the Zondo Commission. We must support it. It must complete its work. So that is the ANC official position. I'm part of that leadership.
No, you're not answering my question still. I understand the ANC position.
I'm not going to answer for President Zuma. I'm not his spokesperson.
No, I'm asking you, what do you make of the threats of anarchy?
I'm saying the ANC has responded to that and said, members of the ANC support the Zondo Commission, cooperate with it. That's it. That's the view of the ANC. If you make threats against Zondo Commission, it's your position. It cannot be associated with the
And if you make threats against the democracy the ANC fought for?
It is not threat against democracy, because democracy cannot be turned by an individual. You know it. And not unless you say there are prospects of a civil war.
That's pretty much what does the ashes of democracy mean, though?
Yes.
What does the ashes of democracy mean?
No. I don't want. Don't invite me into a space of exaggerating issues. I will not be your guest there. All I'm saying is that this country is built on foundations that are solid. And it is not fragile. It is not going to collapse because it is threatened. This country is very resilient actually. People of this country are very resilient, whether they hold opposition or not. They know what they want. And when I appeal to my priesthood and tell people, I always remind them that the most correct question is when you give people the scorecard. This is what has happened. Okay. Then people understand where you must go and what you should defend. If you say those who are blind can see, and those who are crippled can walk, and those who have this get cleansed, and the word of God is preached to the poor, the answer is not yes or no. The answer is that here is a scorecard. So the ANC must say, for example, most of the time the ANC is attacked on its successes. Okay, that's what happens half the time. ANC is attacked from his successors. I met a group of 10 young people in this room last week, and I asked each one of them, who is a beneficiary of NSFAS? Out of 10, 8 were. Okay. And I said to them, this is the middle class that has been created by the ANC. Sometimes it becomes rebellious.
Thank you, Gwede.